my experience is I haven't experienced this. I've been in the sea, had the privilege. I think the key bit is I think the public in general, even those who've lived here, have woken up to how precious being out of our cities and even the green spaces in our cities are for mental health, for physical well-being, that idea of sunlight. And I think COVID brought home in a very, very big way. You saw when people were disappearing onto Exmoor and into Cumbria, people who perhaps wouldn't normally go there, just get me out of this enclosed space. And the reconnection with nature, even for the Cornish and Devonians and Salonians, let's not forget the islands, has been incredible. And I hope, not in a woke way, but in that recognition of how important our environment is to us as mammals and how important it is to our mental health, how it is to our physical health, and those things that you've endured. And not here, but speaking about your daughter and your granddaughter, this reconnection. I love the way you called it a friendship tour, because in the main there is some gnarliness as we unlock, but I think in these villages, people have got friendlier. You've taken the right interest in the well-being of your neighbour, of your scout group, of your people, in a way that perhaps we haven't seen, in my experience, for the last 20 or so years.
And so a wonderful opportunity there for society. Some grim times, hopefully largely now behind us, though we're not quite there yet. But there could be, there can be positives coming out of that, not to diminish the negatives, but an opportunity also to focus on the positives. And what then about professionally? There have been some really challenging times, not just for police and policing, but society, but specifically on police. You as Chief Constable here of Devon and Cornwall, colleagues of yours in other forces, you've all had, to a greater or lesser extent, had policing challenges associated with the pandemic.
Yeah, for sure, and part of it has been your own workforce. The colleagues who we had to certainly shield. We had up to one point nearly 1,000 colleagues because of their health issues or the health issues of their family, because remember, all of these people have their own families. Then the homeschooling as an organisation of more than 5,000 people. All those people have home lives.
You lead. This is a narrow part, so.
So to come to work and focus on the public, your home life needs to be as white as it can be. And I always say that our long service and commendations for people with 20 or more, we do it for officers and staff, is my thanks actually go to the families that have supported them and allowed them to do the job that they do.
Yes.
And so that bit was the first challenge in itself, our own working practice, having to do the buildings. Everyone forget we too had to have the one-way systems in the buildings. And those early days, like everyone, the challenge of PPE, and I think most, if not all forces, took a view, how do you balance the needs of your staff, and knowing that care workers and NHS workers were themselves struggling. So those days are quickly forgotten, but they were extraordinarily challenging. Before you got anywhere near the police the streets and police communities challenge. In terms of that, the first wave in particular, the public were superb, and particularly I would say the local radio here. You walk through other forces, but in these communities, Cornwall and Devon, the local radio, whether it's the private stations, but certainly the BBC, the public health messages, the community messages, the food banks, it came together almost naturally in terms of everyone woke up, this is pretty serious. And then equally, we had the challenges that, young people out of school, come the summer, it got a bit tense as we had the big unlock, and we had some disorder on the beaches. And I do worry as we start this tour of what the summer will be like here. No travel, we're going to have our busiest summer probably ever, and what that might mean. But we will get through it. And in terms of my officers and staff, I always point out, particularly to some of the urban forces, we're a big force as it goes, with nearly 5,000 people, 3,500 police officers. That's 24/7 in just over 4,000 square miles. And so if you're a cop on your own, or a PCSO on your own, or a special constable, you rely on the community in places like this. And so that whole point of view, police by consent, COVID has tested when you start issuing tickets. That proportionality test
Yes.
has been really challenging, particularly with the surfing community, the kite surfing community, the walkers, the ramblers. You know, we don't want to be that big brother, but at one point there was a tension between people. I've had enough of this pandemic. Well, haven't we all? Hold station. It gets quite tense.
We've just hit. So your answer there had focused on community, and this is slightly tangential. But at this stage, I've landed you in the mud and me on the firmer stretch of the footpath here. But community is absolutely critical, isn't it? Here, and again, come back to, is it police or policing? The police are next to nothing without the support of the wider community, and it's great to hear that the people of Devon, of Cornwall, and of the Scilly Isles have pulled together very largely with police and policing to, in that particular part of pandemic response, pull through.